The Federal Reserve is not a government agency. Let that sink in for a second. The institution that controls how much your dollar is worth, the one that decides if your mortgage rate doubles, or if your savings lose half their value, is privately owned by banks. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you: this isn't a secret. It's written into the law, and Congress created it that way over 100 years ago. Most people go their entire lives assuming the Fed is a federal department, like the post office or the military, but that is a dangerous misunderstanding of how the American economy is actually steered. In reality, it operates as a unique hybrid, a powerful entity that sits above the reach of regular voters, pulling the levers of the global economy from behind a veil of perceived neutrality, while the average person is left to deal with the consequences of decisions made in boardrooms they will never be allowed to enter. Here's a fact that sounds fake but isn't: since 1913, the US dollar has lost about 96% of its purchasing power. That means a dollar your grandfather saved is now worth about 4 cents. In 1910, a group of the most powerful bankers in America traveled under fake names to a private island off the coast of Georgia called Jekyll Island. Their goal was simple: design a banking system that would protect their interests while presenting it to the public as a system to protect them from bankers. They drafted the legislation in total secrecy, ensuring that the new central bank would be shielded from the whims of voters or the oversight of politicians. They knew that if the public truly understood who was pulling the strings, the plan would never pass. By the time the Federal Reserve Act was signed into law, the architecture of modern American debt had been permanently cemented, effectively handing the keys of the national treasury to private hands without the average citizen ever realizing the profound implications for their own future wealth. 3 years later, the Federal Reserve Act passed. It's funded by the very banks it regulates. They are its shareholders, with guaranteed dividends every year, no matter how the economy performs. But the Fed doesn't just control money through interest rates, it controls money through language. They use a sophisticated psychological technique called strategic ambiguity, relying on vague terms like transitory, data-dependent, and soft landing. By never giving you a clear, honest answer, the Fed keeps the public from panicking while maintaining complete control. It is a brilliant, calculated maneuver that ensures you never quite know exactly where the economy is headed until it is already too late. This silence is intentional. They speak in code, and the media repeats it, creating a feedback loop where the truth is buried under layers of complex financial jargon designed specifically to keep you from asking the right questions about why your standard of living is slowly eroding, and why your purchasing power vanishes year after year. So who wins when the dollar loses value? It certainly isn't you, unless you own assets. Stocks, real estate, and businesses, these are the instruments of the wealthy. People who hold assets watch their value rise alongside inflation, while people who hold cash watch their purchasing power shrink every single day. This is why the stock market celebrates every time the Fed prints more money, while regular families feel prices at the grocery store climb. It is not two separate stories, it is the same story, told from two different rooms, where one side is protected by inflation and the other side is being drained by it. This is a mechanism for wealth transfer, moving purchasing power from the savers to the asset owners. Every time rates change or money is injected into the system, the gap between those who own the game and those who are played by it grows wider, ensuring that the middle class remains in a permanent state of catching up while the elites compound their massive fortunes. Now, here's where we flip this. Understanding this system is about power, not fear. First, protect your purchasing power by holding assets, not just cash sitting in a savings account. Second, when you hear Fed language, translate it into plain English to see the reality behind the jargon. Ask yourself what they would say if they were being direct. Third, follow their actions, not their statements, because what they do with rates matters more than any press conference. This strategy puts you ahead of 90% of the public. If this surprised you, drop a comment below. I read every one, and your feedback fuels our next deep dives. The connection between the Fed and the Treasury is where the story gets even darker. That is next. Stick with me, because once you see the patterns, you will never look at an economic headline the same way again. The power is in your knowledge, and now you are ready to navigate the game.